I've won and lost against the best. This old road's been a hell of a test. But I'm still driving, I ain't slowing down. There's rules I'd love to break and bend, mistakes I've made again and again. But I tell you this, my friends, I'm still around. I hit it hard, man, so far, man. No laying up, no holding back. Ain't afraid of nothing, it's a natural fact. I hit it long, man, till it's gone, man. Keep taking chances, live at large. I hit it hard.
Hello, it's Austin Lale.
Austin Lale, this is Michael, Joel, and Pappy over at Average Goats. How's it going today?
Doing well, guys. How are you?
We're doing great,
Good,
thank
man.
you.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for joining us here. So you quickly want to just tell us what your role is before we get into the wedge conversation and questions that we've got for you today.
Yeah, so I am a custom fitter and builder for Club Champion. Is pretty much the largest custom golf club shop in America with 84 locations nationwide. I think is what we have now. So that's what I do on a daily basis.
That's fantastic. I bet that's a lot of fun getting to see all these average swings.
Average swings and gets to see all this new equipment.
Yeah, testing everything out, best of the best. So anyway, what we're wanting to jump into today, Austin, is wedges. And I guess probably just start with a few questions maybe, and then we'll kind of get some technicality specific type stuff. So Pappy, you want to jump in with your questions?
Sure. Austin, thanks for joining us. Last year we were just talking about I had a 60, a 54, and a pitching wedge in the bag. This year I'm transitioning to a 58, 54, 50, and a pitching wedge to try to help my scoring from 100 yards to 120, 125 yards. And for an average golfer, what do you recommend for a setup? I understand everybody's a little bit different, but kind of like a rule of thumb, what should we be putting in our bag to help us score?
So one of the biggest things, especially talking about having that what I call a gap wedge in the bag. Most guys I see daily and fit maybe carry two wedges, which is definitely not the norm. If you look at the best players in the world, almost everybody these days are playing four wedges.
Any of them got five?
See, that's what I tell you guys.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, for the last year, I've done more five wedge setups with really strong lofted irons these days. The gap wedge tends to not fill a gap anymore. So to be honest, I've done a lot of five wedge setups this past year. But
Out of his time.
yeah, it's because when you're pitching wedge at 40 degrees of loft, I mean and then you carry a 50 degree bladed wedge, you're going to have a gapping issue. It just is what it is. But the biggest thing I see, everybody comes in to the fitting bay, or I shouldn't say everybody, but most people come into the fitting bay and they don't even know how to use their wedges properly, number one, and then they end up with 20, 30-yard gapping distances. So when I start a wedge fitting, I always start a wedge fitting with a 9-iron. Have someone hit their 9-iron. Most average amateurs I see probably 6 to 11 yards max to their pitching wedge, and then you'll see a massive drop off. So one of the things I use a lot of iron gap wedges, hotter faces, thinner faces, perimeter weighting, all that kind of stuff. It's been tends to see the ball go further. So I use a lot of gap wedges as somebody's 11 iron, if you will, to just fill a gap. Then I get into mostly with a sand wedge, understanding how somebody uses it. Do they manipulate face? Course they tend to play, where they're playing, all that kind of stuff comes into effect. So bounce, I use bounce to try to help an average amateur hit third or fourth groove on a face. if you strike the third or fourth groove on a wedge every single time, you're going to get very consistent launch, very consistent spin numbers. And that's what most people don't understand about bounce, is that there's no really right or wrong. It just kind of depends on how you deliver the golf club, what kind of bounce you should be using.
So, Austin, would you recommend like a bounce for somebody that's a digger, more bounce or less bounce?
Oh, absolutely. So if you're digging, if you're steep and you're digging, you want as much bounce as you possibly can get.
Joel instantly asked a question about his own golf game. I love it.
I'm writing this note down too.
We do have a question off of our Facebook feed, Austin, in regards to a wedge. Actually, it's a 60-degree wedge. Member at the club, Kelly Fricky, struggling with his 60-degree wedge. He tries to hit it high all the time, and he ends up actually blading it. What's he trying to do there? I know you don't have a visual of that, but can you explain what's happening there? Because I'm sure you've seen it many a times.
Yeah, so most people that I see, especially when they're trying to hit the lofted shot, they're trying to hoist the golf ball up in the air. So when I say that, they tend to flip at a bunch of loft and trying to get the ball up into the air. If you're using a 60-degree wedge, the ball is going to go up in the air. It is what it is. So what I'm usually seeing, somebody playing it standard in the middle of their stance, they're flipping, trying to add a bunch of loft. What that does is they tend to bottom out a little bit early, or they flip and they just hit the equator of the golf ball and send it across the green. So there's a lot of technique that goes into hitting, especially those higher lofted shots. But the main thing that I try to explain to people in the Bay is that you need to let the loft do the work. The loft is going to send it up into the air.
Yeah.
So kind of let the club do its thing.
Yeah, I mean, 60 degrees of loft is a lot. I mean, it's going to go up. I mean, it is what it is.
I think so too. Real quick, this exact person, I don't know if I'm thinking of the right person, but they might be in a rush to get back to their cart to shotgun a beer.
Yes.
Fireball's waiting on him, I believe.
Fireball.
I don't blame them there.
No. Real quick on the bounce thing. You brought it up. I have a question about bounce in accordance with the type of course I play. Do I need, if I'm playing like a private club or a high-end public course where it's low mode, well-kept bent grass, do I need a different bounce if I'm playing the regular mom and pop or the public course that might have a bluegrass or a ryegrass fairway where the turf isn't as tight knit as a bent grass? Should I be maybe looking at different bounces?
I mean, average goats, we're going to go out and buy 2 or 3 sets of wedges.
So I would. This is another key thing. You can use grind separate to bounce. So say that you're playing, maybe a higher end kept golf course, tighter conditions. Manipulating the face, using for an instance, a Titleist Vokey D-grind wedge. That lob wedge has a bunch of bounce on it, but there's a lot of heel and toe relief. So when you open that face up, the heel will sit lower into the ground. So, the key thing, get fit for whatever the proper bounce is for you, and then start to dabble with how do you actually use the wedge. If you're keeping the thing square faced every single time and you're digging, maybe you don't need a bunch of heel and toe relief, but you can use grind and bounce separate. I always say if somebody is playing a pretty average municipal bent grasses, Kentucky blues, things like that, I'd like to see a little bit more bounce on their wedge in general, but that should not affect, especially the kind of shots they're playing, if that makes sense.
No, that's great stuff. And when you brought up grind, the only thing grinding over here are the gears inside of my and Michael's head.
Yeah, for sure.
Technically mind blown right now.
Typically not time to think about bounce and grind when I was standing over a golf ball. It's just grab the club and swing it.
Thank you for thought. 998, 999 in my head this year when I'm over the ball.
You're welcome. You're welcome. hopefully you think about that when we play together.
Yeah, for sure.
Now Pappy's going to be in the maintenance barn grinding on his wedges.
Oh my God, you're going to see sparks flying at 5 in the morning.
Then you're like a dentist in Florida that got in trouble.
Another question I had for you, I don't mean to step in front of you guys, but we got him on the phone. I need these answers. What are your thoughts? Yeah. I'm reading a lot about rusty wedges. What are your thoughts? Do they really work better? Because when I was reading this article, all that could pop in my head was the movie Major League, when the old pitcher, and he's talking to the young Rick Vaughn. He's like, "You put snot on the ball," and now, now we're talking about letting our wedges rust so we get better, zip on the ball or something.
Little
like
Bardol.
Yeah.
Crisco.
I put jalapeno up my nose. So does the rust really work on the wedge?
Now this is a true average goat question, I think.
This is
rust on a wedge.
Yeah.
It's a great average.
It's supposed to rain Thursday. Should I leave my wedges outside?
Yeah.
No, you got to put the head covers on.
Put in some white vinegar.
Yep.
Yeah, put in some white vinegar. Get extra spin. So look, I've hit.
Wait a minute. What's this? Wait, hold on. You're burying the lead. What's the vinegar thing?
It activates.
Oh, you strips it. Put it in vinegar. Strip the steel off of your off your wedge, and you'll start rusting.
Is this legal?
You can also use
Pappy's golf ball's gonna be orange this summer.
You can also.
I'm gonna tell you right now.
Come to my garage. You'll find a bunch of stuff.
Yeah. A bunch of vinegar.
You can also use Coca-Cola.
Does it work if I eat vinegar chips and wipe my hand on
salt
the golf
vinegars?
Yeah. But no, seriously, the rust on the wedges. Yeah. What are you thinking here?
All right, so rusty wedges. Look, for average amateur golfer, you're talking less than 200 RPMs of spin. So all the marketing in the world is gonna say, "Oh, rust your wedges, you get more spin around the green," things like that. You'll never notice. You'll never absolutely notice a rusty wedge versus your typical chromed wedge. Now,
I ordered some.
I'm pretty certain not to. This is Michael. I'm pretty certain not to cut you off, Austin. That a bladed wedge and a chunked wedge, the rust does not matter. That's just a guess. But
absolutely not. Absolutely not. Absolutely. People get way too involved with that. But here's another one for you to chew on. A rusty wedge will last longer than so if you take a Cleveland zip core wedge in chrome and you take a raw Cleveland wedge that rusts, you will get more life out of a rusty wedge. They're not plating the steel. It's
that's a good tip for average goats on a budget.
So for your average goat on a budget, a guy that comes in doesn't care what it looks like, but wants to make sure he's not buying a new wedge every year or 2 years or whatever it is. A rusty wedge will last longer. Think if you think back to the Cobra Trusty Rusty or a Cleveland 588, you saw guys have those wedges forever. Yeah.
I think it's official. Matt Reese just bought his last set of wedges last year. If these things rust, he's got them forever.
Well, we got to put in some Coke or vinegar. Get that finish off.
Yeah, or strip it. Yeah, or start putting everything in vinegar in your house. Yeah, but so rusty wedges, and there's a feel standpoint to rusty wedges too, and things like that. People can dive into, when you don't plate a wedge, but the whole spin thing, leave that to the guys on tour who really can notice 200, 100 RPMs of spin.
I did order a set of raw wedges.
Oh boy,
my mind is officially blown right now.
Mind blown.
I am. I'm going back to the drawing board.
You didn't think the rusty wedge was going to be
so if I'm
that deep, did you?
I know this is fascinating to me, and I thought I was a true golfer, but this is great stuff. I am thoroughly enjoying this. Quick question then. I always kind of thought if I'm an average golfer to rounds played to above average, where I play a lot more rounds, maybe almost every year, every 2 years, I should be switching up my wedges. What is the rule of thumb? I heard the thing about you can do the fingernail test, and you do the fingernail, and if the fingernail catches the groove, kind of like the old Abraham Lincoln penny in your tread on your tire. I don't know any of this stuff, if it works or not. What am I supposed to be doing for the average goat? If I'm getting rusty wedges and I'm getting 20 years out of them now, I'm so confused.
Oh, yeah. No, so my rule of thumb that I tell people when they ask me this question is roughly about 250 rounds. you should maybe think about changing your wedges. If you don't know how deep the grooves are and your fingernails change because you chewed on them after you made a quad, about 250 rounds is when I would start going, okay, maybe there's some performance loss there. So, if the average player gets 20 to 30 rounds in a year, you can do the math and come up with a good rule of thumb. Now, again, you playing a trusty rusty, you might get an extra 30 out of it. I don't know. But,
I'm buying wedges way too frequently.
Yeah, Michael's buying wedges every 25 rounds.
Yeah.
15.
25 rounds at 5 wedges a pop?
I don't play that many rounds of golf a year.
No. Last year was the most rounds I've played in a long time, and it was 60.
So, but what if I'm like a VJ Singh of average goats and I hit a lot of range balls?
Yeah.
They're going to wear out more quickly.
Are these limited flight rocks that you're hitting just banging the glove?
I have no idea what you're talking about. No, these are brand new Pentas.
That's soft.
If you are a big range rat, if you are a big range rat and you're hitting not on mats, we're talking about on an actual grass range with sand-filled divots and all that kind of stuff that's going to eat your wedge up a little bit, then I would probably cut about 50 rounds off of that. So usually it's, for the average player, it's just, maybe a year and a half off of what, off of that 250 round rule.
This kid bangs a lot of balls. How often is Sammy Carraher getting
wedges.
New wedges, Austin?
Well, now because I build his golf clubs, not as often, but you can ask his dad how many text messages I got. Are you sure Sam doesn't need new wedges? Are you sure? I'm like, you can buy whatever you want, buddy, but his wedges are completely fine. But for a player like Sam who's playing, at a high level that many, I'm probably changing his wedges every 2 years.
Yeah. I think Pappy's got one more question for you, Austin.
Just a quick one, Austin, if you don't mind. When you're out on the course and you're throwing a lip in, what is the flavor and what is what kind you doing?
Well, right now, what I got in,
I just lost $10. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, well, the boys know. I got. I'm tobacco-less now.
Good for you.
Nice.
You're on that Tennessee stuff.
Finding
probably some coffee or grape shit.
The grape stuff's okay.
Yeah,
Tastes like grape soda.
I'm not a fruit guy. I'm not a fruit guy. So I got Cool Mint in right now. Yeah. I got Cool Mint in right now. You might find cinnamon or wintergreen in my bag every once in a while, but I'm on the Cool Mint train right now.
You got?
No, I don't have any questions. I already know everything. So
the only wedge consideration that I typically think about is just really turf conditions. For me, is it soft or is it firm? The 60 stays in the bag a little bit more when it's a little soggy, just in case, trying to preserve the life. But other than that, that's it for me for when it comes to wedges.
What kind of vinegar do I need to buy on my way home tonight?
Apple cider or white? What are we talking here?
White.
Plain white vinegar.
White.
Same thing you clean your drain with at home, right?
Apple cider vinegar, I think is what they put in that quick weight loss stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, so after I do the wedge thing, drink a glass of this down. Got it.
Yep. Guaranteed 10 pounds.
I could go down a whole rabbit hole in apple cider vinegar, but that's for another day.
Okay.
Well, thanks, Austin. We appreciate it, man.
Yeah,
and
great stuff.
Hope to have you on again soon.
Yeah, please, anytime. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Yep, thanks for insight, Austin. Talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye-bye.